This video is sponsored by Squarespace. More about them later. In the land of Unova lies a quaint little farm where the cool breeze blows and the flowers sway. While most prefer the hustle and bustle of the big city, the residents of Floccesy Ranch prefer the quiet tranquility of their rural life. As the wheels of time move relentlessly forward, Floccesy stays behind, content, idle, and happy. That is until one day, Team Plasma came stirring up trouble, and in an instant it was clear that Floccesy Ranch could no longer ignore the world at large. And so a spark was ignited. A young boy was driven to action. To stop Team Plasma, to save his farm, and to become champion of the Pokémon League. At the time, this boy could not possibly know what lay ahead. The pain, the struggle, the heartbreak, and yet, looking back all these years later, it was the best decision I ever made. Floccesy Ranch is home to a great many Pokemon you'd expect to find on any farm. There's the sheep who provide the wool for our clothes. There's the working dogs that herd our sheep and lay by our beds. There's the rodents that bound and scurry across our fields of flowers. The birds that swim in the rivers and fly from tree to tree. And who could forget the anthropomorphic jackals that aimlessly roam the land with their human eyes and feral cries. You know, just the standard farm animals. It's these 7 residents of Floccesy Ranch and them alone who will follow me on my quest across the great land of Unova. In the local city of Espertia, we face off against the first gym leader, Charon, who has some familiar faces. I decide to lead with Dorothy, my sweet, docile Lillipup. There's nothing she loves more than snoozing in the sun-kissed fields of Floccesy Ranch, but when it's time to go to work, she gets the job done. Exhibit A, an immediate critical hit, takes out Patrat and pits us up against Charon's own pup. He outspeeds to get off a workup, but we retaliate with another tackle that does just under 50%. So, not wanting to trigger a heal, Dorothy uses Leer. This time, we move first, revealing a speed tie as evil Lillipup goes for a tackle of his own for exactly 50%. Our held Oranberry means that dear Dorothy will survive another, but she proves total dominance by winning another speed tie and netting us the very first gym badge of the journey. As we make our way to Verbank City, 4 of my teammates evolve. Dale evolves into Flaffy, Dorothy evolves into Herdier, Cletus evolves into the mighty Lucario, and lastly, our little girl Jolene, whose beauty is beyond compare, evolves first into Meryl and then into Azumarill. It's Jolene here who will be our answer into Roxy's poison types, starting first with her coughing. Wait a minute, Jolene's a boy? Well, I'll be. Looks like Jolene's gender changed when he evolved. On Floccesy Ranch, we were raised to embrace all walks of life, and it's undeniable that Joe's much happier now than he was as an Azurill, so rock on, little dude. You matter, and you are loved. Never forget that. Anyways, Joe can blow through Roxy's team. Bubble Beams pop coughing, and then a few huge power returns are enough to take out Whirlipede. That's 2 badges down, and we're off to the big city. It's a humbling experience coming from our serene little ranch to this massive skyline of steel monoliths. On these streets, surrounded by thousands of people, it's so easy to feel small. What are you doing? What do you mean? You're from Boston, Massachusetts. You've lived in a city for 10 years, Flygon. Why are you talking like that? It's a character, Garchomp FJ. You're ruining the immersive storytelling. Okay, well, sorry. I just think it's kinda weird to put on a fake voice, that's all. Really? You don't see anything hypocritical with what you just said? Nope, but I do see that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Okay, well, that is true. But at some point, we're gonna have to have a conversation about the reality of your existence and your fluctuating levels of self-awareness. For now, though, let's talk about Squarespace, an online platform that helps you build and manage your own website, whether that's an online store for your business or a personal blog for your thoughts. Squarespace recently introduced their new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint, which lets you choose from curated layouts and styling options to build a distinguished and professional online presence from the ground up. Squarespace Blueprint makes the perfect website for whatever your brand or business is, and optimizes the site for every device. Plus, with integrated SEO tools, your passion project will show up more often to more people. I use Squarespace to create poppyhg.com, the one-stop destination to find curated pictures of my corgi puppy Poppy. And with Squarespace's video collection feature, now there's a whole video library for your viewing pleasure. With additional features like analytic information about the traffic of your website and online stores to help monetize your passion, you're sure to get the most out of your Squarespace subscription. So if you're looking to start a website for your business or hobby or corgi, then you should check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your website, you can use my custom link to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. In the booming city of Castelia, Tuck the Pitta evolves into Tranquil. Tuck's always had dreams of going to the big city. On Floccesy Ranch, we called him Lucky Tuck, so if anyone was gonna make it big in this concrete jungle, it was him. Stevie the Patrat also evolves into Watchog, providing our third fully evolved Pokémon as we get sucked into Berg's nightmare-esque labyrinth of flumes made from spiderwebs. Fortunately, Berg's more bark than bite, as Tuck uses a combination of Air Cutter and Quick Attack to effortlessly take out Swadloon. Against Dwebble, Joe, his smile like a breath of spring, uses his held Eviolite and 2 Bubble Beams to snag another easy kill. Which means that Leavanny is Berg's last man standing, but he's no match for Lucky Tuck. A held Eviolite ensures that we take very little damage from a few cuts before landing a super luck boosted critical hit Air Cutter for the clean KO. Wait a minute, is Tranquil actually good? Best not to make a verdict too early, but things are looking promising as we collect badge number 3. On Route 4, a fancy science man waxes poetically about the power of Pokémon, but it doesn't stop Cletus from clapping his 2 steel types like a pair of cheeks. So after Dale evolves into Ampharos, we're off to fight Nimbasa City's gym leader Elisa, and it's here where the patient Stevie makes her grand debut. Elisa's Emolga uses Volt Switch for a solid chunk of damage, bringing in Flaffy, who gets nailed by our watchful teammate's massive return. A Hyper Potion means that we need to use 2 more attacks to take out the sheep, and since Static paralyzes Stevie instead of taking the kill, I decide to switch to Dale as Elisa pivots out with another Volt Switch. This pits our electric type against Zebstrika, and with the help of leftovers, Dale should be able to handle this without too much trouble. A Flame Charge from Zebstrika instantly triggers our Static, which all but seals our foe's fate. It ain't long until Dale sends Zebstrika to the glue factory with a few returns. Flaffy comes back out, but she's easy pickings as an Electro Ball gets a quick second kill. So all that's left is the Flying Rat, and unfortunately, she got the short end of the stick against Dale, who shrugs off a pursuit that causes another static paralysis, which consequently results in a clean kill from a now massively charged Electro Ball. Just like that, the battle's over, and I couldn't be more proud of our woolless bovine. And it seems like we've made an impression, because Elisa herself walks me out of the gym. Not too long ago, I was just a small kid from rural Unova, and now crowds are cheering my name. We'd come so far already, but this was nothing compared to what still awaits. In the funky town of Driftveil City, my last 3 teammates evolve into their final forms. Lucky Tuck evolves into Unpheasant, Sweet Dorothy evolves into the ever-so-fluffy Stoutland, and finally, Georgia evolves into Golduck. She's been on the sidelines for most of the journey, but with her full power finally realized, she's our lead against Unova's most notorious gunslinger, Sheriff Clay. Krokorok and Sandslash fall to a Water Pulse apiece, leaving nothing but Excadrill. He outspeeds to hit a Metal Claw, odd choice for a move, but it pays off with a 10% attack boost. And since Georgia's not strong enough to get the one shot in return, she has to tank one more random hit. But I got faith in Georgia. All she's gotta do is hold tight. Well, that's that. You know, growing up on a farm, we were never sheltered from death. Whether it was the livestock, the wild animals, or poor little Billy Walker, I was no stranger to death. But this hurts. Sure, Cletus can come in, and using a held air balloon, he can survive a hit from Excadrill to get the revenge kill with a Force Palm. But that don't mask the pain of losing a teammate. Georgia was a gentle soul, and she deserved so much more. Even in the short time I knew her, it was clear that Georgia's potential was limitless. In another life, she'd have fought her way to the Pokemon League as a speedy sweeper, defeating every powerful foe in her path. She would have defied expectations, vanquished her foes, and ultimately been crowned a Unovan champion. But in this life, we're forced to carry on with only the memory of our brief time together. So long, Georgia. We'll miss you dearly. It was undeniable that Georgia's death had rattled the entire team. We were all scared. Who would be the next to go? One more loss and we'd be down to just 5 teammates. Was it just a matter of time until each and every one of us was dead? After taking our frustrations out on a few galactic grunts, we arrive in Mistralton City, and there we face off against Skyla for badge number 6. We need a morale boost, and thankfully she obliges. Dorothy slices through Swoobat like a perfectly cooked fish fillet. Against Swanna, I pivot through Joe to ensure that Dale can come in on a resisted air slash. Then, after tanking a bubble beam, we get the KO with a quad-effective Electro Ball. A few more hits on Skarmory, and that's all she wrote. The 6th gym badge is ours, and we're off to Lentimos Town. The next portion of our travels are long, but relatively uneventful. A few multi-battles with Bianca, an exhibition match against our rival Clem, and a showdown with Team Plasma's Zinzalin all go off without a hitch. By the time we've made it to Opelucid City, the team is firing on all cylinders. Everyone's got their role to play, and throughout our journey, we've become quite a force to be reckoned with. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it's Cletus who's taken the role of team leader, often paving the way to victory with his vast move pool of coverage moves. He's gonna be essential to defeating Drayden's dragon types, but my lead of choice is none other than Lucky Tuck. Against Druddigon, we use Feather Dance to lower his attack, resulting in hits from Crunch that do just about as much as our Rocky Helmet does in response. From here, we can spam Roost until Druddigon's HP drops low enough that a return will get the KO. Revenge is a little scary here, since Roost drops our flying type, but all we need to do is tank one more hit, which thankfully still doesn't do enough to KO Tuck, even with a crit. So a return takes the knockout and brings in Flygon. But with Tuck bait and Rock Slide, it's free to bring in Cletus, who can then outspeed and one-shot with an Ice Punch. Haxorus, Drayden's terrifying ace, is faster than Cletus and manages to set up a Dragon Dance, but our Steel-Spirited Warrior resists all of his attacks. And since Dragon Pulse is a guaranteed 2-shot, one slash is all Cletus has to stomach before getting the final KO of the fight and winning us the 7th gym badge. But there's hardly a moment to celebrate, because as soon as we step outside, Team Plasma's turned Opelucid City into a frozen wasteland. With all the hullabaloo about gym badges, I nearly forgot that the reason we started this journey in the first place was to protect the farm from Team Plasma. It's clear they mean to bring this icy death to all of Unova, and there's no way that Floccesy Ranch will survive. Team Plasma has to be stopped by whatever means necessary. This is nothing less than a matter of life and death. But first, we're off to Humilau City for the fight against Marlin, the final gym leader. Priorities. Against Caracosta, Dale takes the KO with 2 Thunder Punches, using a held Rossberry to make sure we're safe to a potential burn from Scald. As Marlin brings out his Whale, I switch to Dale. And Amnesia means that Wailord's now got +2 special defense, but it's not enough to stop Dale from landing a truly massive discharge. And try as Wailord might to forget with a second Amnesia, it's still not enough to prevent a second discharge from getting the KO. Jellicent is last, and even though we can't get a clean OHKO, Dale shrugs off the Scald in retaliation, meaning that with one last grotesquely named move, we've won the 8th and final gym badge of Unova. And so the war against Team Plasma for the fate of the world begins. It's not long until we once again come face to face with the fancy science man from Route 4. This time, he's traded his light scientific musings for what can only be described as pseudo-intellectual bull roar used to willfully deceive others into thinking that his intentions are anything other than selfish. We had a word for these types of folks back on Floccesy Ranch: assholes, because they're full of shit. The smug-nosed nerd leads with an Eviolite Magneton, and I lead with Dale, who immediately uses Volt Switch to break Sturdy and bring in Dorothy on a Thunder Wave. Her held Cherry Berry cures the paralysis, meaning that we can take the kill with a quad-effective dig. That brings in Magneton's big sibling, so I start by breaking their Sturdy with a return. Magnezone then goes for Thunder Wave, which means I'll need to break through 2 full paralyses if I want to take the KO with Dig. Sadly, after eating a Flash Cannon, Dorothy does indeed get fully paralyzed, so I'm forced to switch to Cletus, who thankfully comes in on another Flash Cannon instead of a Discharge. Because without getting paralyzed, we can now outspeed and kill Magnezone with an Aura Sphere, bringing in Chorus's 3rd Steel type next. But we can just outspeed and kill them with another Aura Sphere, though here's where things get tricky, because Beheeyem comes out 4th, and no, I'm not kidding. This extraterrestrial is the real deal, since we don't have a way to get the one-shot. My best bet is to bring in Stevie for a crunch, but a Calm Mind to boost Beheeyem's special attack and special defense means that Stevie's gonna be eating a massive hit on the next turn. We just gotta hope that he can survive. Our crunch does huge super effective damage, and then Beheeyem just goes for a 2nd Calm Mind, so greed proves to be the deadliest sin as we take the KO at full HP. All that's left is Matang, who sets up an agility as I bring in Joe, his voice soft as a summer rain. A Zen Headbutt on the next turn causes Joe to flinch, which would be a touch scary were it not for a Zen Headbutt miss on the following turn to balance the scales out. After an Aqua Tail for roughly 80%, Joe hits another Zen Headbutt and gets the final KO with a Surf to win us the battle and stop Colress dead in his tracks. But he's not the only asshat in Team Plasma's ranks, because Ghetsis is the master behind the whole operation, and he's a real piece of work. Using science or dark magic or something, he's created Kyurem Black, the ultimate weapon designed to help him rule Unova with an iron fist. What can we possibly do against a force so powerful and so destructive?
Oh, wow!
Yeah, so low kick knocks that sucker down. But much scarier is the fight against Ghetsis' team of 6. This is easily our toughest challenge yet. In order to win this and save the world, it's gonna take absolutely everything we've got. Ghetsis leads Kofagrigus, and I'm forced to again lead Cletus. Fortunately, a Shadow Ball Tech is enough for a 2-shot, with Cletus only needing to tank a neutral Psychic before getting the KO. That brings in Seismitoad, so I pivot to Tuck on an Earthquake, and then immediately bring in Stevie on the Muddy Water, which invariably gets the accuracy drop. That means we've got to roll the dice, our wide lens helping out ever so slightly. If Stevie misses her Seed Bomb here though, she's as good as gone. But she pulls through and gets the one-hit KO. Nice job, Stevie. That brings in Toxicroak, so it's back to Tuck, this time on a Brick Break. A Sucker Punch hits for some more damage as we take to the sky. Thankfully, Lucky Tuck lands his Fly on the following turn, so Toxicroak goes down and Ghetsis sends in Electros 4th, meaning it's time for the bulky electric types to go head-to-head. A Thunderbolt doesn't do much to Dale, especially with Leftovers recovery, and our Power Gems are doing solid damage. Unfortunately, Electros has Crunch, which preys on Dale's weaker physical defense stat, and frustratingly, the second Crunch gets a defense drop. Now we are able to take the KO with a 3rd Power Gem, but as Drapion comes in 5th, we can no longer guarantee bait Earthquake for the free switch to Tuck. The result is that I have to hard pivot to Dorothy, though thankfully Earthquake does such little damage that it shouldn't matter too much. We outspeed and hit Drapion with a nasty return before he retaliates with a Night Slash that just barely doesn't kill, even with the sniper boosted crit. With a few more returns after Ghetsis heals, Drapion falls, and all that's left is the mighty Life Orb Hydreigon. So we ain't out of the woods quite yet. I've got no choice but to go to Cletus, though if Ghetsis crits with Dragon Rush, our strongest Mon will be 6 feet under. But Hydreigon misses, and so with one last low kick, the terrifying dragon falls, and we've defeated Ghetsis once and for all. With Team Plasma no more, Floccesy Ranch is once again safe. There's nothing stopping me from returning back to my life of comfort, back to that little farm where every wish comes true. But we're so close to taking a crack at the Pokemon League, so close to becoming champions, that it'd be a waste to turn back now. All I gotta do is fight my rival Clem one last time. He sends out his own Unpheasant, and I lead with Ghetsis. An Aurasphere hits the bird hard as he goes for a swagger, though thanks to our held Person Berry, it's nothing more than a free attack boost. A max potion means it takes 2 more Auraspheres to get the KO, but then Bouffalant comes in second, who now easily falls to a single boosted Drain Punch. Ghetsis unfortunately isn't faster than Simisear, so I gotta switch out to Joe on a soft Flamethrower. For some reason, Clem opts for a second Flamethrower on the next turn. He never was the sharpest tool in the shed, but the result is that Joe's got plenty of HP as we take the penultimate kill with an Aqua Tail. As Serperior comes in last, I switch to Tuck. A coil means that this is gonna get a tad tricky, but I start first with a Feather Dance to lower our foe's attack. The result is that his Leaf Blade does just about nothing, and Rocky Helmet does a sizable chunk of chip. Worst case scenario, I can just roost stall Serperior until he knocks himself out. But Tuck's having none of that as he instantly ends the game with a critical hit return. They don't call him Lucky Tuck for nothing. With that, we've officially made it to the Pokemon League, and after a bit of prep, my final team, all at level 58 to match the aces of the members of the Elite Four, are locked and loaded. At this point, there's nothing left to do but go for it. So let's roll. First up, Grimsley. He leads with Liepard, and I lead with, you guessed it, Ghetsis. A fake out immediately causes a flinch, but thanks to our steadfast ability, this grants us a speed boost, which we can then use to outspeed and kill Liepard on the following turn. We can also outspeed and one-shot Crocodile, who comes in second. Now unfortunately, thanks to the Croc's Intimidate, we can't KO Scrafty, so I gotta switch to Tuck on an annoying Rock Tomb. An Aerial Ace does more than 50%, but since a second Rock Tomb drops our speed again, I gotta switch out before taking the kill. Frustratingly, Joe gets hit by a third Rock Tomb, so he also has to eat a crunch before finally getting the KO with a Waterfall. That don't matter much though, because last is Bisharp, who hits Ghetsis with a Limp Night Slash on the switch before folding like a lawn chair to one last Aurasphere. So that's Grimsley defeated, but the rest of the Elite Four is far less simple. We don't have a single Psychic or Fighting type resist, and Chantel's Chandelure obliterates my entire team, including Joe, thanks to her Energy Ball tech. These next few fights are gonna require some luck. There's no way around it. I decide to take on Caitlyn next, who leads with Musharna as I bring in Dorothy. She uses Work Up to boost her attack, which is the only way to safely deal with Caitlyn's team. A Yawn from Musharna is fine since we have a Chesto Berry, but unfortunately, even at +1, Crunch isn't a one-shot onto any of Caitlyn's Pokemon. Though that doesn't stop the hardest working pup on Floccesy Ranch from landing a critical hit on the next turn. As Reuniclus comes in second, I gotta switch out since she knows Focus Blast. Dale borrows a bit of luck from Tuck as Focus Blast misses, meaning that he can now comfortably hit Reuniclus with a super effective Signal Beam that causes a confusion, which immediately causes Reuniclus to hit herself in confusion. Looks like he borrowed a lot of luck from Tuck, since now an Electric Gem boosted Thunderbolt means that Dale gets the KO at full HP. And then after finally taking a hit from Caitlyn's third Mon, Sigilyph, a Volt Switch lands Dale his second KO and lets me safely bring Dorothy back in. Gothitelle is the only Pokemon left, so I fire off a Crunch for just over 50%. Though a Citrus Berry means we'll need 2 more hits, which isn't great as Sweet Dorothy gets nailed by a Psychic that causes a special defense drop. That drop don't really matter much though, because a critical hit would have killed regardless. A quick check with a makeshift ruler tells me that Gothitelle is at just about 70% HP, so the best way to do this is to use Work Up to prevent Caitlyn from healing on the next turn. If Psychic crits though, this is the misplay of the century. But Gothitelle goes for a greedy Calm Mind, which means that Dorothy is free to chomp her way to victory on the very next turn. Ignore the ruler here, by the way, I just forgot to get rid of it for a little bit. Anyways, next is Chantel, and as I said, her Chandelure can essentially kill my entire team. The only way to do this is to bank on Fire Blast missing, or setting up with Ghetsis against her lead Cofagrigus. And since I ain't a betting man, Calm Minds are a no-brainer. After 2, Ghetsis sweeps through Chantel's 4 ghost types with a single Shadow Ball apiece, winning us the 3rd battle of the Elite Four. Against the final member, Marshal, it's nearly impossible to set up a sweep even if I wanted to. His lead throw has Rock Tomb and Bulldoze to lower our speed, which would completely stop any potential sweep. Instead, I lead with Joe, who uses a Water Gem boosted Waterfall to hit throw hard and cause a flinch. Though that flinch is actually a bit frustrating because it means that Throw still wants to go for a speed reduction move, and if he chooses Rock Tomb instead of Bulldoze here, I won't get the safe switch to Tuck that I'm hoping for. But the lucky bird pulls through once again and does indeed come in on a Bulldoze. He can then take the KO with the return, baiting in Conkeldur's second. But we came prepared for this steroid-induced clown because Tuck immediately takes to the sky and dodges a Stone Edge before using a Flying Gem to get the clean KO on the following turn. We're really playing with fire here, cause just one miss and Tuck is in a lot of trouble, but we've got no other options. As Sock comes in 3rd, I switch to Dale on the Rock Slide. He then has to eat a massive Brick Break, which unfortunately would have killed with a crit, but since it just activates static and our held Citrus Berry, a Volt Switch breaks Sock sturdy and grants me a safe switch back into our Fortuitous Pheasant. With the massive damage from Volt Switch, a return is more than enough to get the KO without risking a miss, but as Mienshao comes in last, Tuck's life is back on the line. He soars high into the sky as Mienshao crashes for massive recoil. And then, on the next turn, Tuck connects for his 4th and final kill of the fight, indubitably cementing him as the hardest working Unpheasant in Unova. You know there's a lot of talk out there about Unpheasant, but I'm here to say that all those morons are wrong. Tuck has done more than I could have ever expected, but his job's not done yet because we've still got the final battle against Iris, and her team is absolutely stacked. The Dragon Dance and Haxorus alone makes this one of the hardest champion fights in the series, so as the battle begins, my team and I prepare for the worst. She leads with Hydreigon, so I'm back to my comfort lead of Ghetsis, who's able to barely outspeed and one-shot the 3-headed beast with a single Aura Sphere. That brings in the Sheer Force Life Orb Druddigon, so it's off to Dale on a fairly hard Focus Blast, though once again, Leftovers helps out quite a bit. Signal Beam does a solid chunk of damage as Druddigon now retaliates with the much stronger Rock Slide, though now a Volt Switch can do enough to bring Druddigon into the yellow, such that a close combat from Ghetsis will get the kill after he comes in on a second quad-resisted Rock Slide. My sweet baby boy. His number's finally up. I wasn't prepared for this. For another loss? And with Ghetsis dead, there's no telling how many more will follow. This battle just became much more difficult, but all I can do is trust that the team will fight even harder to avenge the death of their fallen brother. Joe comes in and with an Ice Punch, he takes the revenge kill on Ghetsis' murderer. As Lepra comes in 3rd, threatening with Thunderbolt, I switch to Dale, who gets the luck that was not awarded to Ghetsis by dodging a Sing. This lets him use Volt Switch for a massive chunk of damage and a safe pivot back to Joe on a Surf. I repeat the process, and this time Dale does indeed come in on a Thunderbolt, which means he's once again safe to hit a Volt Switch that now kills Lepra as I bring Joe back in. Iris sends out Aggron 4th, so Joe immediately eats a nasty Double Edge before retaliating with a quad-effective superpower for the clean KO. But that brings out Haxorus, and here's where we have to make a tough call. There's no telling what move Iris's ace will go for here. She could Earthquake, she could Dual Chop, she could X-Scissor, hell, I've seen Haxorus go for a Dragon Dance even when she sees the kill. So sadly, the absolute safest play to cover all of those options is to stay in with Joe and go for Charm. But because Iris simply opts for Earthquake, it means that our beautiful buoyant boy goes down. Say hi to Georgia and Ghetsis for us, Joe. Rest in peace. There's only one answer into a threat like Haxorus, and you better believe it's good luck Tuck. A Feather Dance instantly drops Haxorus down to -2 attack, as Iris goes on the offense with a now very weak Dual Chop, double proccing our trusty Rocky Helmet in the process. A second Feather Dance brings Haxorus down to -4 attack, as she uses a Dragon Dance to gain the speed advantage and get back to -3 attack. At this point, as long as I don't get crit multiple times in a row, Tuck should have this in the bag with just a little bit of patience. But patience has never been Tuck's strong suit, because after roosting back to full HP as Haxorus desperately attempts to get up to neutral attack with a few Dragon Dances, Tuck manages to land a critical hit return for the KO. We just single-handedly beat Iris's Haxorus with an Unpheasant. Lucky Tuck is a god. That being said, he's still got one last job. Archeops is Iris's final Pokemon, and Tuck is our only teammate who outspeeds. I need to neuter this final threat with a Feather Dance, because otherwise he'll rip through the rest of the team. With the drop-in attack, Tuck will survive a single Rock Slide, and then he can use Roost to drop his flying typing and get back to full HP after just a few turns. If we can repeat this a few times, Tuck actually has a chance at besting this bird head-to-head. But even a single poorly timed critical hit, and our hero will go down. It all comes down to just how lucky Tuck is. Our first Feather Dance comes out to drop Archeops to -2 attack, and then Iris opts for Acrobatics for some reason. That's great because it procs Rocky Helmet and means that a single Roost gets Tuck back to full HP before now eating a Rock Slide. So on the next turn, we go for our second Feather Dance as a second Rock Slide, leaves Tuck in the yellow. So next is another Roost, and this time, Rock Slide misses. This is huge, because now Tuck can freely hit a return to bring Archeops below 50%, which activates his Defeatist ability, cutting the prehistoric chicken's attack in half. The result is that now even super effective Rock Slides are doing basically nothing, meaning that we can Roost again to get back to full HP on the next turn. Rock Slide does a whopping 16 damage to Tuck, so I take the opportunity to hit Archeops with another return, though we do miss out on the kill by just a sliver, letting another Rock Slide deal another bit of chip. Iris heals with a full restore, so our return doesn't even bring our foe out of the green. But a second one once again activates Defeatist, and then Archeops goes for an Acrobatics, which does not crit. So with one last love-powered return, Tuck takes out his ancient ancestor, winning us not just the battle against Iris, but the entire run. As we enter the Hall of Fame, I've got mixed emotions. I mourn the loss of my 3 teammates, but I know that they died for something greater than themselves. And for that reason, I'd like to think that they're at peace. Someday we'll all be reunited on that great farm in the sky. We'll laugh as we remember the good times and cry as we remember the bad. As always, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know. But I do know that if you want to watch me play the hardest ROM hack of all time, you should check out the Highlights channel for coverage of my Pokemon Run and Bun Hardcore Nuzlocke. But other than that, stay tuned for more Nuzlocke content on the main channel, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.